What's up everyone, and thanks for joining me again this week. You may notice the change of scenery. Last weekend we had our basement flood just a little bit. It's not a big deal or anything. It's all cleaned up now, but there's this overwhelming smell of bleach right down there, and that's where my photo studio is. So I figured instead of locking myself up in a small space with a heavy bleach smell, probably be better to film somewhere else. This week I want to talk about the SQL Server choose function. Now this function is nothing new, but I never knew about it until recently when I saw it used in a query, so I figured, hey, if I didn't know about it, let me learn about it, I could share it with all of you. So the way the choose function works is we pass in a comma delimited string of values. Here, right, I have 3 colors, and then as the first argument, I can pass in the index of which of these 3 values I want to return. So if we run it, right, we get green. This is kind of like having an array in a programming language and then choosing its index to return the value. So it works kind of the same way. So one use case that I could kind of figure out for is to use it as kind of a lookup table directly in a select function, right? So here's my open JSON query where I'm parsing some JSON values, but the type field that comes back from OpenJSON indicates what type of data is coming from our parsed JSON, and I never remember what those integer-based values mean. So what I could do is add this choose function right here with all the different type IDs that relate to that OpenJSON function. And if we run this, we'll see, okay, here's our type values, right, 0 through 5. But then to ease looking up what those mean, we have our string equivalents here, right? So we have null, string, int, boolean, array, and object. So the one interesting thing here is that while the OpenJSON function returns our types starting numbered with 0, the choose function requires is a 1-based index function. So we have to add 1 to each of our types so that, you know, the type of 0, which is for null, actually maps to the first value here, which is 1. And if we actually look at behind the scenes what this choose function is doing, right, we can click on this compute scalar operator in our execution plan, and we will see, right, if we open this up, all that's happening is that the choose function gets converted to a series of case when functions, right? So it's just an alias for a very elaborate case when. And we can verify this by actually just rewriting our query to use a case when type statement, right? So this is the same exact thing, but using case when. It's a little uglier to write, obviously. It'll return the same exact values. Our execution plan is the same. And if we go into our compute scalar, we will see that we will once again, right, those are our case whens. There's some differences in, you know, the conversion, so there's some convert implicits in there. Now, like I've said, I've never knew about this choose function, and I've never used it. I've never really seen it used until this past week, and I was trying to think of if I would actually ever use it, because normally in this kind of situation where I have a set of lookup values, the way that I would do it would be through some kind of lookup table, right? So here I'm creating this temporary table called JSON type. If this is something I was doing all over my database, I would just create a permanent table. Right, I can index that table, and then I can insert all my values into it. And so if we do that, we'll create our table, and then we can go run our query. And here, see, there's no choose function in our select statement. We're just joining on our lookup table. So now this goes from being kind of a very scalar row by row execution with the choose function to a set-based execution by joining on our lookup table. And once again, we'll run this. It gives us the same exact results. There's no differences there. But if we go to the execution plan, you'll see the plan's a little bit more complicated. But not really, right? This is just a basic lookup, and we're doing a nested loops join, and things work. So would I ever use this choose function in my day-to-day query writing? I mean, I don't know. If I'm doing something quick and ad hoc, I guess. But realistically, if I'm writing queries that kind of have to use these lookup values, I much prefer to store those values in a lookup table and then join onto that table. Not only that is more repeatable, but it should perform better when you have large numbers of rows, right? There'll be a tipping point where this scalar function that's using all our CPU, right, will eventually take more time than just using kind of the set-based join approach. So I would imagine, right, if we were to do a lot of testing with this, that set-based join lookup table approach would perform better on larger data sets. So that's it. If you've ever used the choose function in some other way, I'd be curious to hear about it, so please leave a comment below. If you're not already a subscriber, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my weekly video updates. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.